Alrighty. Thank you guys so much for joining today. Today we're going to be talking about compassion in nursing homes. And I'm going to be interviewing a seasoned nursing home worker who is very compassionate. Um, Erin, say hey.
Hello, hello.
Um, yeah, so we're going to be talking about that. And thank you so much, Erin, for coming on today. I really appreciate you letting me interview you today.
Well, thanks for having me, buddy.
Um, Also, side note, I just realized it is making that beeping noise every time you say something whenever it's that push to talk thing, I think.
Let me see if I can do.
While you do that, just want to give you guys a heads up. My battery died in my car and I had to call AAA and they're going to be like arriving at some point soon. So at some point I'm going to have to hop off and Aaron is going to take over and answer any of your questions that you might have. Um, and so just wanted to give you a heads up that I might have to disappear for a little bit. Um, Aaron, how you doing on your end? Gucci?
Hello?
Hey,
Still beeping?
you know what? It's fine, whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, no.
what's that?
I didn't say anything.
Okay, anyway, do you do you want to tell me about ways that you've given compassion to residents when other people didn't?
Sure. Um, well, I guess let me start with um, because I wasn't always compassionate in my field. Not to say that I was like uh, a jerk or something, but I feel like going into the field, I had a very kind of like poisonous mentality that I had to overcome first.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a very simple process. I when I originally got my first job at a nursing home, um and this is anywhere you go, whether it be a hospital, psych ward, skilled care, whatever. They always have you do these modules on a computer to sort of like, hey, you're certified to handle kitchen stuff, you're certified to lift people, whatever. And I remember one module very specifically. It was like, hey, are you ageist? And I had never thought of that idea before. And it was funny because going into these modules, I was like, oh, I'm just taking care of old people. What's the big deal? They're just going to lie there. I'm going to roll them around, like whatever. And I had this mentality. And I remember taking that test and being like, oh, wait a minute. I think I am. The way I perceive the elderly is I don't, not to say that treat them like they're not human, but I definitely treat them differently than I do other people. And I never noticed that about myself. Even if when I had older coworkers, I tended to, value the younger people's opinions more, or, I kind of had that okay boomer thing going. Um, so yeah, when I first started taking care of people, there was a lot of like they would talk about their experiences and they'd be like, oh, my daughter really likes the color purple, blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, but I need to like change your shirt and flip you around. But instead kind of being like, oh, wait a minute, like she's trying to build a connection here, and there's no, I can take 2 minutes of my day to listen to this person, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of that in healthcare where you just need to take a minute and be like, reevaluate this person's situation a little bit. um and I definitely think most people that I've worked with don't do that. So I think that's a pretty good place to start as far as like a very, very easy fundamental component of compassion that a lot of people I don't think lack, they just simply overlook.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. I feel like I went through something similar, and I hate to admit that, but like, when I was an EMT, um, I remember like for instance, had a patient who she was really cool and we were talking, but then she just started repeating the same things over and over again, and I felt myself getting like annoyed, like, oh, like she already said this, like, okay, I don't feel like engaging with this person anymore. And like it's just like you said, where it's like you have to come at it with a place of empathy and understand this person's situation, and it's like this isn't about you, it's about them and making them comfortable, even if you have to answer the same thing over and over again or have the same conversation over and over again. Like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because you're supposed to be there for them. And like, I didn't grasp that right away, or there were times where I felt like my heart wasn't as in it as it should have been. And I definitely worked on that, but I wonder if that's a common thing for people starting out in, the medical type field, or however you would describe that umbrella, uh, to go through.
No, definitely. I think the way, and I think there's a consequence. I think what ends up happening is
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna let you take over for a little bit because the AAA thing is calling me. I'm so sorry.
no, you're good.
All
Do you
right.
think
All right. Thanks so much.
I will hold it down from here? Good evening, Sir Falcon, if that's your real name. You just missed Danny. She actually is taking care of some business with her car battery. So she'll be gone for a little bit. In the meantime, we can have a little bit of ASMR. Nursing homers? That is such a good name. Also, yes, like it's one thing to show respect to the elderly, but also kicking one every once in a while just to send a message. Hi, everybody. Um, for those just turning in, uh, Danny actually has some bit of car trouble. She's calling AAA at the moment. So in the meantime, we're all just vibing. No, there's nothing more dope than rating a stream where there's just nothing. I think it's kind of beautiful. It's kind of like putting some money in an empty basin, you know? So obviously, since we're talking about compassion nursing homes, I think it's appropriate to talk about Will Smith and what he did at the Oscars. I personally think the whole debacle was hilarious. Team, there's a time and a place. That's probably the most adult way to perceive it. If there was an actual right answer, that's probably it. Team neither is also a good choice. Oh yeah, anti-celebrity coming full throttle. I just love how everywhere I look, like on Facebook or YouTube, people are talking about it, and is there really nothing else to talk about? Like I even brought it up now. I thought that too. I think there's a remarkable lack of not even just consequence, like obviously consequence, but I think it is strange that he could just walk on stage and do that. Like I feel like there's a lot of just like staring. Like people just watch things happen and there's no proactiveness and responsiveness, I suppose. Like I saw this video recently and it's been haunting my soul. It's like a stoat, which is like a ferret kind of looking thing, and it's like chasing a bunny, which is pretty, textbook predator prey kind of stuff. But then like there's other bunnies in the video and they're just sort of watching the bunny. And I feel like society's a lot like that. Like there's this very obvious bad thing happening or something, and it's a lot of just watching. Like the bunnies aren't like helping each other or running away. It just feels very unnatural. Yeah, a lot of the people I've been hearing, like a lot of the anecdotes I've been hearing are like Will Smith that is and Jada or whatever.
Hi. So sorry about that. Oh, the chat has been like popping off. So, for those of you guys who don't know, I'm sorry to cut you off. For those of you guys who don't know, I had like a car emergency that I'm like low key dealing with at like the worst possible time. So, really sorry about that. Okay. Uh, yeah. Go ahead, Aaron. I'm gonna catch up on the chat. And let you. Were you responding to the chat?
Yeah, we were just talking Will Smith drama.
Um, did I did I miss anything else?
No, no. You got a little mini raid.
Oh, oh my God! Thank you. Who did that? Did it say who rated?
Project Gnarly.
Aw, thank you so much, Project Gnarly. I really appreciate that. Um, Also, hey V Falcon. Hey Protector Piff. Whippersnappers. Aw, cute plushies. Thank you. The bunny's name is Carrots, and then I have a littler one named Baby Carrots. Um, uh, where did I just miss Will Smith drama?
Um, well, we're just everyone. Most people are indifferent, which is
Oh.
pretty cool. Most people are like, "It's stupid." I'm like, "Yeah." I'm over here being like trying to stir the pot a little bit. I'm like,
um, I already went on a rant about that. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe don't physically assault comedians. That's all I have to say about that.
"What a precedent." I don't like
So,
your joke, sir.
what's that?
I don't like your joke, sir.
Yeah.
Chris
Yep.
Rock did like a champ, I thought.
I thought he did too. I admired his response. He was just like,
Wow.
yeah, he was just like, he just smacked the shit out of me. Now I'm gonna make a weed joke. And it's like, right on, man. Fucking respect.
Respect.
Yeah. He's coming to fucking Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so is
Bill
Kevin Hart.
Burr. Oh.
Oh,
Oh.
oh.
Maybe wait, is Chris Rock coming to Pittsburgh? I think no, I was thinking of Kevin Hart. My bad. Oopsies. Well, anyway. So, you were talking about times where you've given I asked you about times you gave compassion to residents when other people didn't, and we were sort of talking about like the idea of being jaded in the medical field. And that resonated a lot with me because I felt like it took me a little while to get my bearings with that too. Um, and would you say like that just made me think like you said you've been like lifting up a patient and they would just like die. Like they would just die right there. Like do you think that you're how would you describe how you take that now? Like, do you feel jaded, like this is normal, or do you still like find yourself making these strong connections where you take it really hard, or is it like, where's the balance there?
Well, that's a great question. I actually wanted to elaborate because I do think there is a kind of an innate like almost defense mechanism to being jaded. Like it's weird because there's kind of two extremes, right? Where there's you can be jaded by having a lack of empathy, and you can also be jaded by having too much empathy, right? So, like, I feel like what we were talking about before, kind of being ageist and having these preconceived notions about old people and, making up stereotypes, that's very rooted in, oh, wait a minute, I don't know their experience. I don't know what it's like to be old, to have my agency slowly taken from me financially, emotionally, Um, so that's a very like unempathetic approach. And I feel like that's pretty easy to, at least from my end, to sort of curve that by like just experiencing people and listening to what they actually say and, you know, watching them and how they behave and talking to their family and stuff. But then I do think there's this sense of like, I see hospitals doing this a lot you have like nurses that have been working for like 30, 40 years. And I think that takes a toll on you when you care too much. And I think there is this part of you that's sort of like, okay, well, don't get too attached to these people because then you can't do your job, right? Because
Yeah.
you're going to watch people die, you're going to watch them decline mentally. So not to say I'm necessarily defending being jaded, but I do think we could afford to be sympathetic sometimes when kind of like maybe we watch somebody, you know, being a little insensitive to a resident or being a little quick to kind of get them, through their routine, and you can kind of be like, hey, instead of just writing having them be reported or something and being like, oh, they're being a douche and blah blah blah. It's like, okay, well, hold on. Like, why don't we actually talk to that person and sort of see where that's coming from? Because I think it can be a little more complicated.
Yeah, I think that that makes a lot of sense. I'm wondering, do you feel in that sense that it would be better in that field to have to favor sympathy over empathy so as to not emotionally tax yourself as much, but to still um resonate with that person and give them the validation that they deserve in that instance?
Yeah, I definitely think the compassion, it can't just be, I feel like you have to be compassionate to like three different elements in healthcare. I think you need to be compassionate to the residents or patients. You need to be compassionate to your coworkers, and then you also have to be compassionate to yourself. And I think there kind of comes this sort of like triangle of care that if you overlook one or two of these aspects, you it kind of crushes you a little bit. Like, I think you need that foundation. Um, and I think it helps to be empathetical, but I do think sympathy goes a long way. Especially with your coworkers, right? Um, but I actually feel sort of the opposite with patients or residents. I actually feel like there's this weird, I don't know. Do you ever have somebody, they're like maybe flirting with you and they're being real nice, but you can kind of read through it a little bit?
Yeah. I'm
Old
an
people
Uber
are
driver, so
right, right. So you get it. Old
yeah.
people are so good at that.
Oh yeah.
And they can't stand it. And I actually think the worst way you connect with them is treating them with just like kind of this mock sympathy and being like, oh, I get it. It's so hard for you to not get up in the morning and blah 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 blah, and talk to them like they're children. But it's because it's interesting because you sort of are treating them like children as far as like, oh, you're helping them talk and talking slower and picking up their stuff, but they're not kids, and that's a
Yeah.
really big difference. Like, as far as creating like a rapport with somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would think I'm very, very good at that, sort of like cutting through that bull crap. And um, I had one resident who used to own a hospital and be in the military, so he hated when you talked down to him or where he felt like you were being condescending. Um, so as far as building a connection, I definitely think like with the elderly, if you can't empathize, don't even try it, right? Just sort of do your job and treat them with that type of respect as opposed to sort of manifesting what you think would be the right sympathetic uh, alternative.
That actually reminds me of I had a psych patient I picked up from a nursing home who was admitted. You know, she's a 301, 302. Yeah. And they committed her to the hospital because she threatened to punch her roommate, and she was furious when we picked her up. She was flipping out at me, and we were in the back of the ambulance together, and she's flipping out, and I'm like, "Look, I understand that you're upset, and I didn't do anything to you. I'm on your side. I'm trying to help you. So like, let's work together cuz I'm on your side. Let's talk about this." And I think I was the first one to actually give a fuck what she said, because she like calmed down and she like started talking to me and telling me like how horrible it is in the nursing home, and she almost broke down in tears being like, "I just wish I could run away. Like it's such a horrible place and I'm trapped there." And when we got back, when we took her to the hospital, the nurses were being so fucking shitty to her. Like, she asked me if I could hand her her purse so she could get chapstick. Literally, just so she could get chapstick. And the nurses were like, "Oh, don't do that. No, she shouldn't have access to her purse." And I like pulled the nurses aside and I was like, "You don't talk about them like that. You don't treat them like that." And the nurse just totally fucking backpedaled and was like, "Oh, I would never do that." And it's like, I literally just saw you, but okay. Like, it just made me furious that like people, like and I understand what you're saying, like having compassion towards coworkers, but sometimes it is so fucking hard when you have heard somebody pour their heart out to you and you know their story and you don't know this like other person's story, where it's the nurses, maybe she's overworked, whatever the fuck, and you're just so angry because it's like you see her treating this person who's going through so much shit like that, and it's like I like literally tried to be as nice as possible when I addressed her about it, but like deep down it's like that still bothers me. um I have to give me 1 second. I'm gonna let you talk on that, but I have to deal with the AAA thing again. I'm sorry. um
No, do your thing.
okay, but I'll let you speak on that.
Yeah, no, I think I definitely think there's like a chain of being where it's like the residents come first, then I feel like it's yourself, and then your coworkers, because it should be like a team. It should kind of act like a hive or something where you know you're not doing everything and you don't get burnout and get resentful and all that stuff. But I do think it can be very difficult when you work with people that don't have the same ethics or the compassion, I guess. Um, he's been in enough Adam Sandler movies. Oh yeah, that's a great point. One little slap won't. He's taking it. There's also a major shortage of nurses right now, so the hospitals are pretty desperate and seemingly will hire just about anyone. Yeah, yeah, it's kind of like a really negative feedback loop with that, because you ideally would wish your like hospitals, especially, you want people that are capable and qualified to do the job, but then you're desperate, so you hire anybody and you end up paying those people more money just to work for you. So now suddenly people that are less qualified are getting paid more than people that are more valued and or more qualified. And I don't know, it just creates a very disheartening precedent, I suppose, for the state of healthcare at the moment. UPMC is opening a nursing school in Erie that isn't going full degrees, but will allow graduates to work as nurses within UPMC. Is that right? Hmm. I actually am going to look into that. Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I think that is one good thing about the shortage and the desperation as far as like schooling. I've heard a lot of different like programs being opened up to sort of streamline nurses and cut a few of these corners that have existed for years that aren't quite necessary. And well, we'll see. Something's definitely got to give, though. Incentivizing the workplace would be a pretty good place to start, but I suppose you could say that about any job.
Hey.
Oh, that was fast. Hello.
Hi, I am all done dealing with that AAA thing. So, anyway, can I have like a 10-second recap?
Sure. I was just I addressed sort of a follow up to your point, talking about like, hey, as far as that compassion, there's definitely a chain of being where um, residents obviously are first. Then I feel like the compassion you give yourself should come second, and then with your coworkers, that's third. And the only real reason you're trying to nurture that is because you're fundamentally, I think, what sort of the uh, what offsets being burnt out is the fact that, hey, you have a coworker and they take care of some of the work too, and you're not alone in this field. So when you work with people that have the same values, same ethics, and you can build sort of like a plan around,
Hmm.
it's magic, right? It's very systemic, and I think it not just benefits you, but it benefits the resident in the long run. But it can be very counterintuitive if the opposite persists, where you work with someone and you don't get along. Um, I always feel like you can tell a lot about a person by the type of residents are their favorites, and they're like, oh, I really like the residents that are nasty and they pee and they punch people. It's like, okay, that's great.
Why do
Um,
people like that?
well, some people, to their credit, they like the challenge.
Okay,
Um,
that makes
which,
sense.
yeah, which is cool. I dig that. But then other people, it's like they don't see those things as being toxic and horrible. They're just kind of like, oh, it's entertaining. It's like, well, they're not. Okay, that's fine, but I need you to turn that switch off at some point because it's not about being entertained. You still have to take care of that person and engage with that person. And but
Yeah.
anyways, I'm rambling. So
No, I think there's ways you've used that positively when you talked about how that guy, I don't know if you mentioned this already, but that guy who kept asking you your name and you kind of spun that around into something fun that was not harmful in any way to him.
right,
Did you talk about that?
I didn't. Yeah, I feel like, especially with old people, elderly people with dementia, that's sort of like a completely different ballpark when we talk about compassion and temperance and being patient with people. I think it can be very exhausting, um, in just about every facet. I don't envy family members that have to go through with that. And I do think that is largely the straw that puts people in a home to begin with.
Yeah.
Most people that are self sufficient, aside from like medical stuff, like, oh, it's hard for me to pee, or my back hurts, most people can be taken care of at home. And I actually strongly encourage that as far as the financial, detriment. I think just hiring a at-home nurse just to watch over someone for a couple hours and make sure they get to bed and they're fed, I think is a great way to take care of somebody.
Wait, and that's less expensive than being in a home?
Well, in my opinion, but I've talked to family members. I've talked to two different family members who have, air quotes, tried at home care, and they're like, oh, it ends up being more expensive. And I'm like, I just can't see that, but I need to do more digging. But as far as care and quality and personal comfort, I mean,
Hmm.
there's no question that, being in your own home and being taken care of in a place that you grew up with, or
Yeah.
absolutely outshines being in some weird, you know, room where every room looks the same and you don't know anybody. You can't bring your dog, kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, my criticism's a lot more subjective in that sense, but I just see what they pay and what they're paying for. I'm like, I don't know if those family members know exactly what they're talking about in that situation. But like I said, it's not really my place to say. But I do think that when addressing people with dementia, that's a lot different. Having at home cares, they don't even remember they're at home. So I think they
Oh.
do benefit from being in a place where there's more eyes on them, and maybe like in a secured facility. Um, but
I
that also, oh, go ahead.
I don't mean to cut you off, but just on that note real quick, my great grandmother was in a home and she did remember her home and she kept asking, when am I going to get to go home? When am I going to get to go home? And she had dementia. Do you find it's more often the case that they don't remember their home, or do you find it more often that they're asking like, when can I go home, and forget that they are there for the rest of their life?
Well, definitely more the second one. I actually have a resident who every other day is asking like, "Oh, when am I going home? When am I going home?" It's like, okay, well, you are home. This is your home, and this just kind of a coin flip. There is sometimes when you do that, they go, "Oh, okay," like it's a
Oh,
very sort of short term thing, and they're like, "Oh, I just don't really know what home is," and you can build that for them, which is kind of cool.
wow.
It's a nice, easy process. You're just like, this is your home. Remember, this is your doll that you had when you were a kid. This is where we feed you. This is your TV. And for the most part, you're that's not disingenuous. Those are her things. And then, they're comforted by that. And especially when you tell them where they're sleeping and who's going to take care of them. But there is sort of um, like I said, it's kind of a coin flip because the opposite definitely can happen where you go, hey, this is your home now. And they're like, what? This isn't my home. So now you can't
Oh,
sit there and sell a place they don't want to be. So
yeah.
instead your dialogue is more like, oh, I understand that, but in the meantime, you need help, and this is the best for you right now until we get you back on your feet, kind of thing.
Oh, so you sort of redirect it to be like you don't necessarily lie to them and say
Right,
like, "Oh, you're never going home."
right,
Or I mean, rather, you don't say you're going to go home on Tuesday and then just keep pushing it back, but
right,
like
right,
you
right.
also don't say it as bluntly as
Yeah,
like,
there's a
"Ooh,
sort of I never tell a resident that they're going to stay there forever.
okay."
Um, and because I don't think, not only do I not really know that, but I think it's very unfair to tell anybody that they're going to be anywhere forever. You know, and I've seen people that are uh like fall risks, and they go in people's rooms, and they should never be out of a home, and their kids are like, what, screw it, they're gonna come home with us one day, and they just pick them up, and that's it.
Wow.
I've seen people leave under the most ridiculous circumstances, so you just never know in life, and it's not really your job to tell someone never in any context.
Do you see people leave on good circumstances as well? Like they get better?
Yeah, yeah. Not so much in nursing homes. Nursing homes, there's a fine print where they're kind of like, yeah, you go here to die. That's just sort of the truth of it.
Oh.
And so instead of them getting kicked out of their home and being on the street or whatever, um, hospital, psych wards, a little different. Like you can see people like get better and stuff. But at nursing homes, I have seen people increase their quality of life in the home, which is pretty cool. I used to take care of this one guy who had like a catheter in his stomach.
What does that
Insane.
mean?
So he basically his intestines, he had trouble breaking down food. So he needed to like a device. He basically had a stomach outside of his body.
What the fuck?
And he had trouble like putting his clothes on and stuff. And I was there whenever he came to a nursing home, and I actually watched him like eat better and build a better diet so then his stomach could process food better. He got surgery and got that removed. He walks
Holy
on his own
shit.
now. He does his own showers. Like incredible. He's like 98 years old. So I
Holy
literally watched
shit.
him like, and so that's why I'm very pro physical therapy. I don't I think the misconception with physical therapy is that you expect residents to get better physically. which you're kind of fighting time there, right? Your body's meant to degrade, and it's not really so much about the physical stuff, but you can actually build someone's mentality by telling them every day that, like, hey, even though you're not walking like you used to, you can take a few steps to the bathroom, you can shower yourself, you can pick up your own spoon and have some little bit of agency. And I definitely think the biggest takeaway to nursing homes is every little thing matters. Like, the misconception is like, oh, it's all about big things. Make sure they have the biggest bed. Oh, make sure that they can afford the biggest room and have all the nice cabinets. It's like, old people don't need like 40 cabinets. They don't need the biggest bed. Old people are so, it drives me crazy feeding old people because, like, and I get it. On paper, when you're providing meals, you have to provide, starches, proteins, all these different things. But most old people, like, they eat like 4 ounces of food, like their appetites are just, they're just so different. And they see that food, they see all this food, and they're the way they were raised, they were like more conservative, and they hate the idea of wasting food. So they're always like, oh honey, you eat this. Oh, I can't take all this, blah blah blah. And
Oh.
that's when that empathy comes up, right? Because on paper you're like, just eat your damn food. Like, what the heck? I'm trying to help you. But at the same
Right.
time, it's like, oh no, 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 no. You have completely different values than me. Like, the way we grow up, we're like, oh, more is better. Like, we need more. Like, you get fast food and you got to get 10 sandwiches, and there's always value meals to get shakes and stuff. But like, old people, they grew up on like a piece of rye bread with butter, and that's it.
I mean,
And that's enough for them.
some of them probably went through the Great Depression.
Oh
And
yeah.
also, did you respond to Lucky Pajamas? Did you get a chance to do that?
Um yes, I did. Yes, I did. I was
Okay.
talking about this sort of depressing kind of feedback loop where yeah, there's a shortage. But the way they correlate the shortage is they're like, oh, people just don't want to work there. And it's like, okay, but why do people not want to work there? Is it because we're not being incentivized or people aren't valued? They're like, well, who cares? We're just going to pick up anybody. And then, unlike most jobs where you can afford, there's an email that went viral not too long ago, I think from Applebee's, talking about how because the gas prices are so high, it was like a corporate letter. They're talking about how since the prices were so high, they could actually afford to pay people less, which is hilarious because you feel like the incentive to working is you be paid more because the gas is higher,
What?
but it's the opposite. Um, and
What the
then
fuck?
the inverse of that exists in healthcare, where when you hire someone, they're willing to hire people like 20, 40 cents, at a higher rate than you just to get them through the door. And that's very frustrating because these people aren't necessarily qualified to do what they have to do. And they're making more than you. And these are some people that have been working like almost a decade.
Wow.
And so then it slaps, so then it just creates this awful cycle where the people that should be valued are, it's very much the opposite. So then they want to leave. And then the people that are qualified don't want to stay because they don't know what they're doing. And so it's a terrible way to address that. Um,
Yeah.
but if you want to talk about crunching numbers, the best way to climb in healthcare is never get attached to one place and just jump from place to place because everywhere you go is going to pay you more.
Wow. That's very interesting. I've actually been wanting to get back, like I'm working on keeping my EMT certification because I want to get back into doing healthcare. Like I've been considering that more seriously lately. Like, once I'm done with the Uber thing, um I really you talked previously about coworkers, and I really like the family feel of an ambulance hall environment. We eat together, we cook together. Um in my corporate environment, only one of my coworkers in that whole building ever came to see me perform comedy. But my EMT coworkers who came from like 2 hours away just to see me perform at the comedy competition and like all came on and cheered me on and like were so fucking supportive.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Oh yeah, I'm very grateful for that, and I just think like I'm
Why do you
going.
think that difference exists?
Well, in a corporate environment, you gotta remember you're sitting behind a cubicle. That if you're talking, you're not working. But if you're, at a station with somebody, when you're not, if you're at a place where maybe you're not getting call, if you're in between calls, maybe you're sitting at the station bonding with them, maybe maybe you're washing the ambulance together, maybe you're driving around and uh maybe you're on a long transport where you're driving like a long way just to get to somebody or driving back from Pittsburgh to after dropping somebody off at a psych ward or whatever it is. You're spending all this quality time with these people, and you're going through a lot together. You see some very traumatic things, you see um people break down, you see families finding out that their loved one is dead and telling them that you see children die, you see all of these, you experience these things together, and this um like going through that together, I feel like makes it uh an experience where you can be there for each other. I remember whenever I lost a patient and I was going through a lot, like having people there to be like, hey, I know what that feels like, and having people be there for you, versus what's going to happen in a corporate environment. What, somebody sends you a passive aggressive email and you're like, so and so sent me a passive aggressive email, and people are like, shut up, get back to work. There's not that same connection. There's not that same emotional uh navigation, if that makes sense.
Hmm, that's really interesting. Actually, it's funny because I think healthcare workers have a weird love hate relationship with EMTs.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like there's the ones we love are like treasures, and the ones we don't like, it's like, oh, can we like get someone else? Blah blah blah. It's weird because I feel like there's a lot of overlap with our line of work. Like we have a fall, you guys come to respond. Um, and I don't know. I feel like there's this. It doesn't feel. How do I put? Like I guess under the pretext you were talking about, it feels very kind of corporate. Like it's like a business transaction where it's like, hey, here's the fall, here's the paperwork, and you come in and you pick up the patient and take them on your way. And I don't know. It never feels like I have to connect with you, right? Because like
Huh.
you're just there to do your job. But I wish we would. And I don't know. I guess I just never really thought of. I hear a lot of horror stories like where I've seen situations where we come in and we don't have the right information, and then we're mad at the EMT because they're frustrated with us. And
Mhm.
but I never really thought of like, hey, well maybe I don't know, why are we all want the same thing. We all want this person to be taken care of. And I don't know, I think it's cool to hear that there is a closeness in that field that I think being an aide is, isn't quite the case.
Wow. Huh. I guess I almost took it for granted. I mean, I guess in a way not, because I described the corporate environment, but as far as being an EMT versus other forms of healthcare, I hadn't considered the differences. And I liked what you said about, I thought it was interesting what you said about how it feels very corporate whenever you're transferring patients, because it reminded me of an experience I had where um, I went to pick up a patient for a transport, which is, for those of you guys who don't know, you pick up a patient from one hospital and you transfer them to a different hospital, or take them home or whatever. Um, and I picked up a patient, and these nurses were like, "Oh, just so you know, she's really annoying. She just moans and complains and whines all the time." And that put me for a little bit in a jaded mindset where I'm like, "Oh, they said she's annoying, so oh man, I'm going to have to deal with this." But then lo and behold, I start talking to her on the ambulance ride to the next hospital, and it turned out she had fucking heart surgery and they had to break her ribs to operate on her. So she's barely even able to breathe because her ribs aren't letting her breathe, and it's incredibly fucking painful. And I thought, holy shit, these asshole nurses were making it seem like she was a whiny little bitch baby, and really she had fucking broken ribs, and anybody in her situation would be in immense pain. And so, we were talking about we were talking about everything, and we were talking about like, oh yo, whenever we get to the hospital, like we got to get you some candy or something like from the vending machine, blah blah blah. And like whenever I started talking to the nurses, I'm like, yo, she really likes those fucking kazoozles, you better hook her up at the vending machine. And so like it was sort of like getting to build a rapport with the nurses, but also introducing the patient in a positive light, which is the opposite of what happened to me at the previous hospital. So, what are your thoughts on something like that?
Wow. What was the first hospital that you worked at?
I wasn't working at a hospital. I was picking up a patient from a hospital.
Or I'm
I
sorry,
was.
which hospital was that?
I honestly don't remember.
Okay. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just weird that we have different that healthcare in general, like COVID really opened my eyes to this, that just healthcare has such different. It's weird that you can say to yourself, it's weird that there's different hospitals, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's just strange that they're not all on the same page. They have different values, they have different ways of treating their employees, and then it's a trickle effect. Those employees take it out on each other, and then they take it out on different branches, and then you have to go to a nursing home and you take that sort of sickness with you, and then you poison somewhere else. And um, yeah, I don't know. I just really think healthcare is like it's one thing to say like, oh, I work in a nursing home, or
Mm.
oh, I'm an EMT, or I'm a paramedic, or whatever. Um, but I think it's all holistic, and I feel like the solution to sort of bridging this all together is that we kind of need to build that rapport or have an established rapport with every facet of it. I don't know. I just sort of that's me uh, being a little rhetorical. I'm just sort of talking out loud, and it's just funny because I've done this for years and I've engaged with so many different EMTs, but I've never really thought to be like, hey, Aaron, you're gonna see this guy again, and he knows how you
Huh.
work and you know how they work. Why don't you work together, right? Or like, if you know this person's awesome, actually put their name out there. Like when you call 911, be like, hey, we want this person and we don't want this person, right? Like actually care enough to do that because it's not just for your benefit, it's for the resident. And I don't know. I think there needs I talk a big spiel about being proactive in the workforce, especially in healthcare. And on my end, I think that's a really good place to start.
Yeah, I think as far as being on the phone with 911, like on an emergency call, I think that would be harder to say that because it's like you don't know who's on call, and like you
Right,
don't want to
right.
tie up the lines, of course, by like getting technical in that way. But like, if you see somebody going above and beyond, like calling the ambulance hall and be like, yo, like manager of this ambulance hall, I just want to give a shout out to this person. They did a super job. Like, you know, give Brian a shout out or whoever,
Yeah,
like
definitely.
I think that's cool. And I'm not necessarily saying if somebody does a crappy job, go, be a narc about it. Like if they, maybe just were having an off day, like just like with the nurse, like how I pulled her aside and was like, hey man, like Don't be doing that. I wasn't like, I'm going to go to your manager, but I was just like, yo, not cool. You know what I mean? Like, um, I've had instances where like I didn't act the best. Like I remember there was a patient that was like his genitals were exposed, and I felt so anxious and uncomfortable that I didn't know how to like address it because I was just like scared. I wasn't used to that. Um and like he comes into the hospital and the nurse is like, "Can you like do something about that?" And I'm like, "Oh, right, right." But like she wasn't like angry about it or like treating me like I was a shitty EMT. It's just like, I've had some male patients expose themselves to me, and it was like one of them was like very clearly intentional, and that's like a thing that happens in the medical field is like old men will flash you, and it's very uncomfortable. So it's like I just kind of it was like a freeze response where I just didn't, you know what I mean? So coming at it with like just leveling with that person rather than being like, oh, they must suck all the time. Like, that's an instance where it's like, okay, I could have done better. Here's sort of where I was coming from, but now I know, like, how to handle that, if that makes sense.
No, I love that. Um, yeah, and I think we're full circle now with that sympathy thing when it comes to like air quote coworkers and not really assuming like everyone has like bad days or maybe people mishandle a situation, but that doesn't necessarily like in that situation. I don't look at that as like neglect or anything. Like that's not. I wouldn't look at that situation and be like, oh my god, this person is completely incompetent. Like whatever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
especially with like genitalia in the workplace. Like I had a coworker who was from Pakistan, and her cultural values were, oh, I can't see men naked unless I'm married to them, kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
And so on one hand, it's like, okay, well, we can certainly be sympathetic. But then on the other hand, there is this kind of like, okay, but should you be working here?
Yeah.
Like, how do we, you know what I mean? Like, and I feel like that's a different conversation. Like,
No, it
making
makes sense. It's
concessions in the
difficult.
workplace.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. That certainly would be difficult because it's like, even if you were like, okay, you won't be on shower duty, it's like, well, what happens if she just walks in and doesn't and then an old man, like we talked about, like, actually, I talked to a customer of mine who had mentioned she worked at a nursing home, and this old man would be very creepy, very sexually harassy, like he was kicked out of several nursing homes for like groping women, just sexual assault. And she was made very uncomfortable by the way that this man behaved towards her. And everyone else just basically gaslit her and was just like, oh, if we kick him out, he's going to be all out on the street and it'll be your fault. It's not his fault. He doesn't know what he's doing. And like, I was like, you don't deserve to be treated like that. That's really messed up. And she's like, really? Like, you're the first person to tell me that. And it broke my heart that like she worked in an environment where that kind of behavior was acceptable. And it makes me worry for a coworker that you described where it's like, what if that were to happen to her? You know what I mean?
Oh my
Or just
god.
in general, it shouldn't happen to anybody, but like,
I do think when we talk about like sexual dynamics as far as uh like gender, like male female confrontations, I do think there is a big disparity. Like me, if I'm sexually assaulted by an old lady, it it's very different. Like I can handle that situation differently than a young girl that wants to be a nurse and there's this, bigger man that, wants to be physical. I've seen those situations so much, and they're one of the most infuriating things about my job is having to um, watch that be dismissed for the sake of you kind of run into this customer's always right kind of mentality where they're not in their own head and blah blah blah. And it's like that doesn't stop that person. That doesn't that doesn't justify or invalidate the fear that coworker has, the anxiety of taking care of someone that makes you uncomfortable. Because it's one thing to be like physically afraid, but sometimes girls, I can't tell you how many ugh, old men when they're getting showered by young girls. Holy crap, the horror stories. And your bosses, anytime that's addressed, bosses they're always like, well, if they're working, maybe have another person go in the shower, blah blah blah. And it's like, that's not really the point. Like, that behavior is not acceptable.
Yeah.
um and so, like, on my end, I can do my part. And I it sounds weird out of context, but I love showering those creepy old dudes.
Really?
um like, as a dude, yeah.
Do
um
tell.
well,
Explain.
yeah, because what ends up happening is, because of my frame, I present female, especially with a mask. So they always feel like they're in this position where they're like, oh man, like, I have one guy who, he loved having uh like, washing his genitals. He's like, oh man, take your time down there, blah blah. And you'd always tell girls to do this, blah blah. And I always tell the girls, like, give him the washcloth and have him do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of this, like, preying on these young people that don't really know what they're doing or how to handle that situation. But I get in there and I'm always like, oh hey, no problem, man. They're like, whoa, what was that? Like, I had this one guy, he's like, what'd you say your name was? I'm like, Aaron, but it's a guy spelling. And he's like, oh, I'm like, do you want to wash yourself? He's like, oh yeah, just hand me the bar of soap there, blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, no problem, buddy. Um,
That's amazing. I didn't know where exactly you were going with this. I thought you were gonna
right,
be
no,
like, you
no.
washed their dick and were like, sup,
No,
bro,
no,
like
no.
revealed
I
it
had to be
after.
very. I'm like, oh god. Now that I start, I got to be very, very tactful with this conversation. But no, it's just harassment exists in all forms and different jobs. Like, I mean, you know this better than anybody. And it's no different than in healthcare too. Like, I've been harassed by men and women. But I think it really sucks for women in that field.
Yeah.
And I don't think we do a good enough job in any field, really, but especially healthcare, validating those positions and sort of giving women the means to handle those situations in a safe and tactful way. And it can be kind of a hard line sometimes. But especially if I know about residents, like, I know, hey, like, working together with people really helps. And, like, hey, if you're uncomfortable changing this person, like, you should be able to talk about that. And
Oh.
talk to your supervisor, or, me or anybody. um so that's where that sympathy kind of comes again for your coworker, where it's like, well, if your coworker's too afraid to work, then what good are they?
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily that they're no good. It's just like
Well, right, but I mean,
knowing the
you want them to be
situation.
able to perform, and you want them to be able to have, you know like, you don't want them to feel like they're threatened by their line of work.
Yeah.
um Taking care of the elderly should not be a job you're afraid of.
Yeah.
um and, that's not necessarily all on them. uh I think it's really crappy whenever you have, like, security units where that's where the most, air quote, dangerous people would be. And those units are, you feel like you're trapped sometimes. Not to say that, like, you can't escape, but, like, if you had to, there isn't like this. There isn't like a button you can press, like when you're at the hospital. Like, at the hospital, you press a button, everybody from every floor comes to your aid.
Oh, really?
Um, it's really cool. It's called a code yellow, and yeah, sometimes it's a pain. Sometimes, you go there and the altercation's already handled, or it's not that big of a deal. But at the end of the day, you have that option, and I think it's a great thing. Um, I think it's a great way to get everyone on the same page, but you don't quite have that in nursing homes, um, especially assisted living, where you're trying like the entire framework of the facility. Well, the entire framework of the facility is to create an environment that's not like a hospital. So then, sort of the caveat there is, it's like, okay, well, we don't have security here, and we don't have, you know, a save me button. What do you have? They're like, well, you have each other, I guess.
Huh. That's really interesting actually. I remember we were going to get my coworker Kaylee and I when I worked at the ambulance hall, um we were going to go on a transport with this guy who was a convicted pedophile who had like molested, young boys. And because he had a, sexual abuse background, our boss actually was like, "Hey, I'm not comfortable putting you guys on a truck with this guy. I'm not going to do that to you." And decided to have like two male coworkers deal with it, even though the assault had to do with like young boys. It was just like, these strong grown ass men are going to be able to handle this better. I feel more comfortable putting them on this situation. So the fact that he like had our backs and didn't want to put us in a scary situation, um you know that was sort of one of my experiences in that sort of regard, where my our boss looked out for us actually.
Well, that's really cool. Yeah, I think that's great. Um, do you think that was more proactive on your boss, or did you guys like say something, or
No, he just
you
came
just
out
sort
and
of read
said
the
it.
room?
We didn't even know, we weren't even informed until he like about any of it until he made that decision and came to us and said, "I was going to put you on this transport, but I found this out. Here's what I'm going to do instead." Instead of coming to us and being like, "Oh, is it okay? Are you comfortable?" or, "Hey, this is the situation," and us having to be like, that's not cool with us." Like he just was like so proactive, so on the ball, like right off the bat. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, very very fortunate. And I'm really glad that you work so hard to cultivate an environment where your female coworkers can feel comfortable. And I'm glad that those creepy old men get their sort of comeuppance in that way, where you sort of pull a fast one on them, not in like necessarily an appropriate way, but like they sort of get called the fuck out in a sort of subtle way where hopefully they don't do that shit again.
No, definitely.
And not just that, it's you've literally proven that they're capable of washing themselves. So if, a female coworker ever does have to wash them again, you can say, "Hey, I've witnessed him do this by himself. He's full of shit." You know what I mean?
Right, right. There's no excuse for it, really.
Yeah. Um I'm going to look at my notes real quick. Um I don't want to keep you too long, but as far as I wanted to take a moment to get into the nitty gritty of things, as far as the horror stories with being in a nursing home. What are if do you have a little bit more time? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Would you be able to explain like what, the most atrocious thing that you've seen happen in a nursing home as far as the negligence and like sort of what somebody could I think we could all sort of benefit from knowing red flags or like what to avoid, like how they escape legal loopholes or just extreme negligence on their part. Could you sort of share some of your experience with that?
Well, I have two stories. One of them, it's a more personal anecdote. I like was there. and I watched this process happen, and I was like, what the heck? Um, and then the other one I heard, but I knew the patient. So it was strange. I was like, I worked with the patient resident, and then I left. Then I came back, and in the time I was gone, this had occurred, and I'm like, whoa. So I got to watch kind of like the falling out of it and stuff. Um, so the first story, um, I was taking care of. So there's a strange, and I had seen this behavior before. So like I said earlier, there's a lot of different reasons why people go to homes to begin with,
Uh-huh.
and probably one of the more in terms of how they're handled are hypochondriacs, people that are like very addicted to their drugs and they need a place where they're separated from them and they have people there that are regulating their medication.
Mm.
And the kind of the sad thing with this situation is people that tend to be that way are usually a lot younger. Like they're not even 60 yet, and they're in a nursing home for the rest of their lives because of drugs.
Jesus.
But anyways, so this was one lady. I was on meds. I met her, and this was during COVID.
Mm.
So when a new patient comes to a nursing home, they have to be quarantined for a certain number of days, whatever. You have to gown up in PPE and all this hullabaloo. So she was alone in her room for a couple of days, and she had pain meds, and she had a bunch of different kinds of narcs, which is weird because like most people that have pain narcs, they have like one specific one they're taking,
Uh-huh.
um, like tramadol or something. But anyways, so I had mistakenly given her the wrong medication one night. And so my bosses pulled me in the office. They're like, Aaron, you can't do that, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, that's my bad. I didn't know she had multiple pain, like, whatever. But something I thought was very strange about her is every time I would talk to her, there was always this sense of like she was really winded and blah, 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 and she couldn't breathe. And I was like, and I remember talking to my bosses in that meeting. I was like, does she need oxygen? I really think she needs oxygen or something. And they were
Mm.
like, yeah, we were talking to the hospital and we're working on the order. And so I'm not really familiar with how that process goes, but as
What
long
the
as they're aware
fuck?
of it. Hmm?
That's very shocking to me. Like, couldn't they just fucking throw a pulse ox on her? And if she's like below
Right.
like,
I
95, put her on that shit right away. What the fuck is there
I
any
I
need for?
thought, I didn't I didn't know if we had like a spare oxygen thing and they were like she needed a specific dosage or whatever.
Well, no, you
Um
you shouldn't. You just fucking adjust it on the thing. Like that's I mean, I don't mean to cut you off, but that's atrocious that they wouldn't even fucking have that there. Like they should just have that.
well, we're getting there.
Okay,
Uh,
sorry. Sorry.
no,
I just went off the
you're
handle.
you're on the right page. We're on that same headspace. It was a little alarming that it wasn't taken care of there in the moment, but whatever. I
Yeah.
was like, as long as she gets taken care of, I don't care. So, anyways, I have my first official night by myself as a med tech lead, covering both floors, and of course, it's the worst night ever. I have a death in the facility, someone I knew for a really long time. So I had to, you know, get rid of all of his morphine and clean up the body. And I had different coworkers doing all these different things. And that lady ended up ringing. And she was like, "Oh, is my medication in?" And I looked at her face and she was like stark blue and she was shaking. I'm like, I we're gonna take you to the hospital. So I called my boss and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna send her. She looks terrible. She's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine, blah blah blah. Make sure you send her to the right hospital. I'm like, yeah, yeah. Now, what really alarmed me about this was that exact day. There's it would have been a Wednesday. So at nursing homes, every resident has like a doctor and
Uh-huh.
they visit them routinely to kind of give them a checkup. This doctor came and saw this woman, no change to her orders. Like, I could not believe this woman was sitting in front of me, and the doctor was like, "Oh yeah, she's fine." It's like, what are you? This isn't fine. This didn't just happen in a second. Like she's been this way, and this is a result of her not getting enough oxygen. Like she can't breathe.
Holy
So
shit.
we send her to the hospital, and she kind of is in the back of my head, but I'm taking care of all this different stuff. We had like a fall, like I said, there was that death, and that was like the big thing. I really wanted to get that right. I wanted to make sure I got the right information. They went to the right nurse or funeral home, sorry, and then the family knew all that crap. So then, um, the hospital admits, the resident, and I don't hear from her. And I noticed like a week goes by and she hasn't returned, and I was like, "Hey, is she okay?" Like, um, and my bosses are like, "Well, call the hospital when you get a chance," and I was like, "Oh, okay, whatever." Um, and I ended up getting busy that night, and I forgot. But then the next night, my one coworker was like, "Yo, Aaron, did you hear that lady died?" I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, that lady that you sent to the hospital, she died that night."
What the fuck?
And I remember being like, "And our bosses couldn't tell us that? Why wouldn't they tell us that?" And if that was the first time I'd seen someone like die, but they just were like erased from the record. Like it was so strange. Like normally people die and they take their obituary and they'll post it in the room. They're like, "Remember this resident, blah blah blah," and you're like, "Oh, they're gonna have a viewing in this place and blah blah." And it's kind of like a nice sentimental moment. But it felt like with her, they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, we messed up, and we're just gonna like shove this under the rug."
What the fuck? Also, TJ Nightlight says bro. Also, hello. First time chat from viewer. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's really fucking fucked up. That's really fucking fucked up.
Yeah, at the very least, they should have had oxygen. So if you're a family
Yeah.
member that has breathing issues, and you want to make sure that your family member has those initial needs, because most homes don't. And I'm not even just talking about like the really important stuff. I mean like basic needs. Like there aren't. I had a place that didn't even have sheets. I worked in a place that didn't even provide sheets for a lady. She didn't even have a trash can. Like, but anyways,
Oh my God. If I may ask for a
oh, yeah,
moment. What's that?
no, go ahead.
Oh, I thought you said wait a minute. um with stuff like that happening, um that I have a question for you, and it brings to my mind when I visited my grandma in she was basically in hospice care. Um she there had been a few complaints in like the group chat for our family about the nursing home, and but some people were like, "Oh, I really like the nursing home, blah, or the hospice, whatever." And when we went there, there was one resident just furious, just up and down, swearing about the place, saying, "This is bullshit. I hate this place. You guys never listen, blah blah blah." So if you uh TJ Nightlight also says, "I didn't know anything about nursing homes until now. I've been here for quite some time." Oh yeah, it's scary learning some of this stuff, honestly. And I'm curious, Aaron, if if somebody were to walk into a nursing home and visit their relative and overhear another resident saying, "This place is horrible, this place is horrible, blah blah blah." I know sometimes they're not in their right mind, but I don't want to minimize their concerns. Would you say, in general, if you hear another resident saying this place is horrible, would you say take that concern seriously and maybe get your relative the fuck out of there?
Honestly, it depends where they're at. If it's in like a memory care unit, I kind of would take it with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of that is a very kind of an ill-conceived perception. Like the way they perceive their world is very different than we do. So you kind of have to be like, okay, why is it terrible? Oh, because you're not getting alcohol every day. Oh,
Mhm.
because you're not on a farm. You know what I mean? It's like, well, of course it's horrible when we compare it to that.
Yeah.
But if it's in like the building, like in the main units, like the area, and they're just sitting there and they're screaming and they're like, this place sucks. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
are they just repeating the same thing over and over again? Or are they actually saying things? Like, are they actually having concerns? And I think that can be very indicative because it not just tells you it's not just we used to have a patient. She was so funny, but she had the nastiest mouth. Like she would just scream all the time and just make a huge fuss. And I remember our boss one time. She was like, "Aaron, can you just take her into her room and try to calm her down?" I'm like, "That is a great idea." I think if you go into a home and you just hear someone screaming and nobody's doing anything about it,
Yeah.
I think that's a little alarming. Like
That's
it's
what
one
fucking
thing,
happened. That's what that
yeah.
situation
I
was.
and I will say there are people that just scream for the heck of it. You definitely have those, but at the end of the day, you still have to address people that are doing that because
Yeah.
that that is providing a disservice not just for like visitors, but it's also for the other residents.
Yeah.
Like I've had people in dining rooms that just won't shut their yap and they're screaming and hollering, and that's not fair to everyone else trying to eat.
Yeah.
So I take it upon myself to be like, hey, listen, I'm gonna have you leave and you're gonna eat in your room or you're gonna behave.
Mhm.
Right? That's just kind of that conversation has to go. And I do think more poorly taken care of homes, there is a lot of that, okay, just sit this person here and let them just blabber on forever. Pay attention to like if someone's sitting in one spot, is anyone coming over to take them to the toilet? Like, is anyone even engaging with them? Like,
Yeah,
that's something to be mindful of.
they didn't even fucking acknowledge her, and I went over and I can't even really fully remember, but I feel like I was like, "Hey, sup with that?" And they were just like, "Eh." Like they kind of didn't. It didn't even like again. I don't remember how I handled that completely, but like it was pretty fucking atrocious because it sounded like she had some serious concerns. It wasn't like she was just saying the same thing over and over again. Um, it seemed like from what I can remember, again, this was like 2 years ago. It was something along the lines of like, you guys just sit around, you don't do anything, uh, like stuff like that. And it's like, I'm literally watching them fucking sit there and not do anything while she's freaking out. And it's like, I kind of can't help but fucking believe her, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, I would say, and let me know if you agree with this as we're sort of wrapping up, I guess. And also, guys in the chat, thanks so much for those of you who did stick around. Thank you so much for being patient when I had to hop off for a little bit. I apologize for that. That will not happen again. Today was just like a sort of emergency because I couldn't even lock my car doors and I live in a bad neighborhood. So normally that would never happen. Just wanted to clarify about that. But, what did you guys think of the stream? And what did you think was most interesting that you guys learned today? And Aaron, as you and I are wrapping up, while we wait to hear from you guys about your thoughts on it, Chad Silch says no worries. Yeah, thank you so much, Chad, for like understanding. I was worried how that would come off because I like really want to be professional in this. I really want to. I take this stream very seriously. It's very important to me, and I did feel really bad about having to step away. So I appreciate you being so understanding. Um, and yeah, Aaron, as we're sort of wrapping up here, um, in terms of if you do have to make that, because all of us might be in that, any one of us could be in that situation someday where we have to look at our parents and realize that they can't take care of themselves anymore. And unfortunately, we'll have to, if in-home healthcare isn't an option, Like with my grandma, we couldn't leave her in her home. It was not a good environment. We just couldn't do it. She needed too much care. Um uh TJ Nightlight says so far it's been good. Well, thank you. I'm really glad that you like this, and that means a lot. And yeah, I really want to find a way to because I thought it would be really important for people to hear about this stuff because nobody knows what goes on behind these closed doors. And I really was happy to get your perspective, Aaron, and get sort of the inside scoop about what to look out for. So, whenever one of us might have to make that very difficult decision of possibly admitting, you know, the person who raised you or even your grandma, whoever, somebody you love very much to a home, how would you go about doing that in such a way where you know that they're going to be in good hands, or like reading reviews or what to look out for? I mean, I know you've said before whenever they would have like a showroom and it would actually be a really shitty room that they would actually be stuck in, and they don't you, the family doesn't actually get to see that. What are some ways that you can tell, hey, this is going to be a good home for my mom or is going to be a good home for my dad?
Well, there's sort of two trains of thought here.
Mhm.
Um, are you putting someone in a home because you don't have access to that person? So when I say that, like maybe you live in Minnesota and your mom lives in PA,
Mhm.
and you have to have a conversation where like you're basically moving your mom, but you can't be there, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So all you can really do there is just sort of look up the best reviews. Um, you know, it helps to have somebody there,
Mhm.
right? Maybe that you like a friend that can check in every once in a while, blah blah blah. But um, I think if you're going to put someone in a home, I think the most important thing you can do is just be a part of the experience. So what I see a lot of is family members do. I call it the easy thing, where they kind of just put their parents in a home, hope it's good, and leave. But I love when family members are actually engaged. They actually like show up at least like, you know, even if it's just once a month, like just let us know you're there.
Yeah.
Let us know that you actually care. And from there, you'll know if it's good enough, right? Like if you're actually actively involved and you actually ask questions and you actually are critical, like I get it's very annoying dealing with family members that are, you know, not empathetic to our situation. But I would much rather you be the nastiest person in the world if it means that you love your mom. If it means that you're going to fight for them to get good care. Because the truth is, not all people have compassion that work there. And that's on you to pick that, like, kind of pick that apart. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think there's a responsibility where your parents at some point, like, took care of you. And this is your way of giving back, I think. And I really feel people, there has to be some effort. Like, I can't tell you what's the best home. Or, I can give you like little like things to look out for, but at the end of the day, your family member. And if you really care, it'll show. And if you don't, we'll care for you. And that's the best we can do. And at the end of the day, that's the best you can do. And I think I I love family members where I feel like I'm working with you. That I think those people, that's how you give people the best care. It's not the bosses, it's not even the facility. It's, oh, the facility doesn't have trash cans. Okay, cool. I can bring that. I can take an hour out of my day to pick up groceries for my mom.
Yeah.
I can buy them. There's this one lady, she was so cool. I'd be like, man, your dad's pants don't fit really well, and I wish he had socks that are like this. She's like, Aaron, you make a list, I'll get it. And she got it that night.
Oh,
Everything.
wow.
And it was so cool. She's like, no, I love when you guys were involved. Whenever her dad was dying, she was there the entire time. I remember hugging her when we were done. I'm like, this is what this is all about. Like, your father raised you so that you could take care of him. Like, it's such a beautiful way of just giving back. But it was little things. It wasn't her being there every 5 seconds and nagging. It was just her
Mhm.
actually being open to the idea that their loved one was changing. And that's a hard thing, but that person doesn't have to go through that alone.
Wow. That's a really heartbreaking story listening about, her being there when her dad died, and like I'm so glad that you were there to just give her a hug and words of comfort. Like, you know, it's not just about the patient, it's about being there for the family. And I am really glad that there's people like you who actually care, um, when it's clear that people don't always have that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I appreciate you coming on here and talking about that. I mean, I know that might not be easy to talk about some of this stuff, and yeah, you did a great job like opening up about all this and really giving us the scoop, and also telling us how to manage this if this happens to us someday. Like, I really appreciate this, and I think this is going to help a lot of people.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. I love
Yeah.
talking about my job.
Yeah. I'm really glad. And uh Chad says, I'm enjoying the stream, really good perspectives and insights. Yeah, I definitely thought we had a really good, both of our experiences actually. I feel like we had a lot to share with that. Um, and VI Falcon says, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for this stream, both of you. Well, thank you, VI Falcon. And see that last story you told got me sniffling, Aaron. um, TJ Nightlight says, thanks for the talk, bro. I think I need to go visit my parents now. And VI Falcon says also that I want to call my parents now. Aw, yeah, I think let's all, after the stream, let's all go call or text our moms and dads. And just hit them up with an I love you at the very least, because I know my mom's in bed, but I'll just, yeah. Um, the lake says, let's talk to our parents, have a potluck. Um, yeah, my dad can bring his world famous chili. uh, I don't know, Aaron, if you were there for that stream where I interviewed my dad, where he went
Oh,
on about his.
I was there.
uh,
Man, his passion for his chili.
uh, I don't know if I mentioned this. I didn't say this on the stream on that stream in particular, but I don't remember ever fucking having his chili. And if it's so called almost famous, even his daughter doesn't know about it. I'm gonna tell him
Oh
that.
my God.
I know. I know. I know we're talking about it's so funny how we're like, "Oh man, I'm going to tell my parents how much I love them and message them right now." And I'm like
What damn
talking
chili?
smack about his chili. What's that?
What damn chili, Paul?
Well, this has been a pleasure. Um uh Thank you guys so much for coming today. Thank you again, Aaron, for like the billionth time. I really appreciate you coming on. And yeah, I will see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow's topic is gonna be about how to make friends. I think a lot of people could benefit from that because I've been hearing that's a common theme. People don't know how to meet people or keep friends or make friends. So we're gonna be talking about that. Um, Chad Zilch says, thank you both for the stream. Thanks, Chad. All right. I love you guys. Thank you again for showing up. And this has been Shorty Pop and Aaron. All right. Aaron, you want to say goodbye to everybody?
Yeah, take care and give your parents my regards.
Yeah, go call your parents.